Good morning, Acharya ji.
Om Sudha Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam
Vande Guru Paramparam.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavidvishwavahai Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So now, in the last verse, verse number 3, Lord Krishna gave a sort of an indirect reply to Arjuna. And now he begins to talk about various types of this worship. Okay, so one is the highest, of course, is worship of the formless Brahman. Then comes worship of Vishwarupa, Ishvara, and so on. So this is now what we are going to see. We will look at verse number, was it 4 that we, yes, verse number 4. Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Sanniyamyendriyagramam
Sanniyamyendriyagramam
Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha
Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha
Ye Prapnuvanti Mameva
Te Prapnuvanti Mameva
Sarvabhutahite Rataha.
Sarvabhutahite Rataha.
Okay, so first look at the word meanings. Sanniyamya Indriya Gramam. So Indriya Gramam is the, literally speaking, the group of Indriyas, all the Indriyas, Sanniyamya, under control, and Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha, even-minded at all times, having a calm mind, and Sarvatra Rataha Sarvabhuta Hitehe, interested in the welfare of all beings. Sarvabhuta Hitaha, welfare of all beings. Such devotees, yetu, such devotees, te mameva prapnuvanti, they attain me alone. Okay, so here he's talking about the highest form of sadhana, the inquiry into Nirguna Brahman. So we also say meditation upon Nirguna Brahman. So meditation upon Nirguna Brahman is nothing else than the inquiry. And therefore, some of the qualifications necessary are being presented here. We saw these qualifications in Tattva-bodha as sadhana chatushta sampannaha or sampatti. What is the first one? Indriya gramam niyamya. Master of all the sense organs. Why? Because the mind, if the sense organs flow out, the mind also flows out. If you want the mind to be mastered, first you have to master the sense organs. And therefore, sanniyamya. Sanniyamya is samyak niyamya, means completely controlled. And Shankara says, upasamhritya indriya gramam. Having withdrawn the entire group, upasamhritya, having withdrawn Indriya Gramam, the entire group of the sense organs, all the 10 sense organs you have withdrawn. So, in fact, not only just 10, there are 11. So, Indriya Gramam is 5 is Pancha Jnanendriyani, Pancha Karmendriyani, the 5 Jnanendriyas, the 5 Karmendriyas, and the 1 Antakaranam. These 11 fall under the classification of Indriya Gramam. having withdrawn them all, right? Now, then comes the meditation upon Nirguna Ishvara. Now, Nirguna Ishvara is, we all know, not available to the sense organs. And if such a Nirguna Ishvara is there, how should I understand? There is only one way in which I can understand Nirguna Brahman. That is what? That is the idea is that this Brahman is not available to sense organs at all. So there are only two things in this universe, right? Subject and object. So if Brahman is not an object, then that Brahman should be what? The experiencing subject, the observing consciousness. And therefore, Nirguna Dhyanam, when you say Nirguna Ishvara Dhyanam, it is Atma Dhyanam. Meditating upon Nirguna Ishvara is nothing but meditating upon myself. So meditation upon the meditator, that is called meditation on Brahman. Okay. What is the next qualification? Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha. Being of a calm mind, a balanced mind, a poised mind, Sarvatra, under all circumstances. That is to say, with no ragadvesha. Now, Sarvatra can mean, the normal meaning is everywhere, but Shankara gives a specific meaning. He says, Sarva Asmin Kale, in all times, right? Yeah, all times, he must be having a Samabuddhayaha. And Samabuddhaya is what? A mind which is in balance, whether events which are happening are favorable or unfavorable to you, whether what you like is happening or what you dislike is happening, the mind should be in balance, right? Which means you should be free from strong raga dvesha, because if there is a strong raga attachment, what will happen? The mind will gravitate towards the object of attachment. If there is strong dvesha, again the mind thinks of only that object of dvesha. And therefore, when you say sarvatra samabuddhayaha, he is saying, may you reduce or may you focus, work on your ragadvesha, may you reduce it to the extent possible. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. Rataha is enjoying. Enjoying what? Sarva bhuta hitaha, which means when other people are happy, sarva bhuta hitaha, committed to the well-being of all creatures. And here creatures means not just human beings, all creatures. I am happy when all the living beings are happy, not just human beings, all living beings are happy. That is why the prayer, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, may everybody be happy. Okay. Now, you might say, how can I think about the welfare of everybody? I can just about, barely manage my own family. That is why your prayers like Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. What do you do? Every prayer produces some amount of punyam. And in this particular prayer, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, you are telling the Lord that I am praying to you, but whatever punyam is being produced by this particular prayer, I do not want it. You please distribute it to the whole universe. Use it to make other people happy. And this prayer, it makes my mind sensitive. This is called daya or empathy or compassion, all part of jnana yogyata. What is the benefit of meditating upon this nirguna ishvara? Te mama eva prapnuvanti. Such people will obtain me alone, which means moksha. Okay. So, and Shankara adds here, we need not say that jnanis will reach me. That need not be said at all. Why? Because Shankara quotes 7th chapter, Jnani Twatmaiva Me Matam. The Jnani is not different from me. This has already been said, right? So we will not quote. Krishna is just saying that those who are worshipping Nirguna Ishvara will attain me. So this is the answer which Krishna has given Arjuna. Has it answered Arjuna's question? No. Arjuna's question was what? Who is superior? Nirguna Upasaka or Saguna Upasaka. Remember, Krishna just says that the Nirguna Upasaka will reach me alone, will get moksha. But there is no answer to the question of which is superior, Nirguna or Saguna. And therefore, Shankara writes in this commentary. Shankara says, okay, Krishna didn't answer. Maybe I can answer. Shankara says that jnanis are already of the nature of Brahman. Right? A jnani means what? The one who knows I am Brahman. And if somebody is Brahman, where is the question of whether they are superior or inferior? Do you understand what he means? If I am Brahman, where is the question of being superior or inferior? What does it mean? Anybody?
Ravi ji, it means like if I'm saying I'm Kush, I cannot say I'm superior or inferior to Kush. So if it's Jivatma Paramatma Ekyam, when it's Ekyam, then there is no difference. There is no two.
That is one way of looking at it. That Brahman is everything. So where is the question of being inferior or superior? The other thing is like, there is this old saying, like when you are in a rat race, you need to ask yourself, do I want to be a rat? As long as you are a rat, you are in the rat race. But if you are not in the rat race, then where is the question of whether you are better than any other rat or not? So both ways you can ask.
And Acharya ji, Sagun and Nirgun, actually they're the same. So the question is invalid actually from that perspective.
Correct. Since one is Mithya and one is Satyam, you can't really have a comparison. Okay. Now we go to verse number 5. We will chant. Kleshodikatarastesham
क्लेशोऽधिकस्तेषाम्
avyaktasaktachetasam
Avyaktasaktachetasam
अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम्
avyakta hi gatir dukkham
Avyaktasaktachetasam
दुःखम्
dehavadbhirvapyate
देहवद्भिर्वाप्यते
Vakyate.
So tesham, for those devotees, avyakta asakta chetasam. Avyakta asakta chetasam. The one whose chetaha, the mind, asaktaha, is committed to avyaktaha, unmanifest. We can see how the word breaks up. Avyaktaha, asaktaha, chetasam. Chetasam is the one whose intellect, asaktaha, is committed to avyaktaha, the unmanifest Brahman. So, tesham, for those devotees, and this avyakta asakta chetasam is a explanation of tesham. For which kind of devotees? For those devotees who worship the Nirguna Brahman, kleshaha adiktaraha. The difficulties, kleshas, are adikaha, adikataraha. Adikaha means are more. For the Nirguna Brahman worshippers, the difficulties are more because avyakta gatihi, the goal of Nirguna Brahman, the goal of the unmanifest, dukkham avapyate, is attained with some difficulty by dehavadbhihi, by people who are attached to the body, by people who have body identification. Okay, kleshaha hi adhikataraha. Difficulties are more. Now, when we say difficulties are more, it's a comparative term. So, he is more for whom, more than for whom. So, for the we are talking about two types of people, the Nirguna Upasakas and Saguna Upasakas. Why are we talking of two types of people? Because that is implicit in Arjuna's question. So this is an indirect answer. He's saying, for the Nirguna Upasaka, the difficulties are more than those for Saguna Upasakas. What is the difference in the level of difficulties? Why does he say that the Nirguna Upasaka faces more difficulty than Saguna Upasaka? You have to look at what are the difficulties that a Saguna Upasaka faces. A Saguna Upasaka who is worshipping Virat Ishvara, Vishwarupa Ishvara, what does he have to do? He has to hand over his family, relatives, etc. to Ishvara, right? Which means what? Family, relatives, all this is what? Mamakara. Mamakara means mine. What is mine? Whatever is mine, I have to hand over to Ishvara if I have to worship Virat Ishvara. Why do you say that? Because Virat Ishvara is everything, including my family. And therefore, when I worship Virat Ishvara, what I am saying is that my family is part, family, friends, relatives, all are part of Virat Ishvara. Therefore, I am mentally handing them over. Then there are only two things, me and Virat Ishvara. My family, friends, and relatives are all included in Virat Ishvara. So that is the level of difficulty. Right. So what does Saguna Upasaka hand over? Mamakara. Mine. What is mine, I hand over. But Saguna Upasaka does not hand over Ahankara. Why?
Dehabhimana.
Dehavimanam is very much there. Because I am worshipping Virateshwara. Therefore, Saguna Upasaka gives up only Mamakara, but does not give up Ahankara. Ahankara is what? My Deha Abhimana. I give up my family and my friends. So, Anya Deha Abhimana, the bodily identification with every body excepting mine, I give up. But my body identification, I do not give up. Because as a bhakta, as a Saguna Upasaka, I am different from the object of meditation. Therefore, Saguna Upasaka only requires to give up Mamakara. What about Nirguna Upasaka? He has to say that I am this body, my body is also not mine. I am not the body and the mind, he has to say. Therefore, not only does he give up Mamakara, but he gives up Ahankara also. He gives up the identification with all other bodies as well as the identification with my own body also. And therefore, Krishna says that since the Nirguna Upasaka is giving up Ahankara and Mamakara, the difficulties which he faces are more than the difficulty which the Saguna Upasaka faces, because Saguna Upasaka gives up only Mamakara. Okay? And Shankara quotes, Churasya dhara nisita duratyaya durgam pathayastha kavayo vadantihi. Very, very famous quote. Where does it come from?
Kathopanishad.
Kathopanishad.
The
Swami
razor's
Vivekananda
edge.
used to talk about it. Yeah, it's
Yes. Yes.
walking on the path of Jnanam is like Shurasya dhara, walking on a razor's edge. And therefore, avyakta sakta chetasam, for those people who are committed to worship of Nirguna Ishvara, avyakta gatihi dukkham, the destination is much more difficult to reach because avyaktaha. It's a unmanifest destination. It's a Nirguna Brahma destination. Right? See, understanding in this process of worshipping Nirguna Brahman, understanding Nirguna Brahman, what Brahman is an easier task than claiming that I am Nirguna. There are two aspects of Jnana. One is understanding what is Nirguna Brahman. That is easy to understand, not very easy, difficult to understand. I'm not saying easy, but not very difficult, right? Understanding what Nirguna Brahman is the first step. But that is not Jnanam alone. Second step is there in Jnanam. Claiming that I am that Nirguna Brahman. Aham Brahma Asmi. That is the claim that you make. That Brahman I am. When you say that, you have to drop both Mamakara and Ahankara. Mamakara and Ahankara can be divided into 5 normal things. Body, mind, Ahankara, family, possessions, and profession. That is Mamakara. So Mamakara, Ahankara has to be dropped, which means for claiming I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, I have to go beyond the body, the mind, the family, possessions, and profession. And that is a very, very difficult task. So Vairagyam is a very difficult task, right? Okay. And if you remember Aparoksha Anubhuti, Shankara talks about the Vairagyam necessary for dropping these 5. And he talks about the crow droppings falling in front of you when you're on a walk. So he says, when you are on a walk and some crow droppings are there in front of you, what do you do? Do you just walk on or do you collect them? And that same vairagyam which you should have which you have for that crow dropping, that you should have for your body, your mind, your family, possession and profession. That is called dropping of ahankara, mamakara. Okay, another point is that there are 2 avyaktams in the last sloka and in this one. No, in the 3rd sloka and the 5th sloka. So here it says avyakta asakta chetasa. In the 3rd sloka, it says avyaktam paryupasate. You should know that avyaktam in the 3rd sloka and avyaktam in this sloka are meant for the usage as Brahman. Right? Avyaktam we saw in an earlier chapter was also used for Maya, where avyakta vyakta sarvaha bhavanti aharagame. Chapter 8. There avyaktam means Maya. So that you should not get confused. The 8th chapter avyaktam is different from the avyaktam here. Avyaktam here is Brahman or Atma. Avyaktam in the 8th chapter is Maya. And this is difficult for who? Dehavat bihi. For those people who are attached to the body. Those who have physical body attached to that, mind attached to that. And this you can extend to all of them. That all 5, body, mind, family, possessions, and profession. You have to have vairagyam if you expect to be able to claim aham brahma asmi. Okay. Now the question is, supposing that I don't have that degree of vairagyam, then is my life a failure? Krishna says no. So there are other options available. So then he says, we go to verse number 6. Ye tu sarvani karmani
ये तु
ये तु
सर्वाणि
सर्वाणि
कर्माणि
कर्माणि
मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्पराः
मयि
सन्न्यस्य
सन्न्यस्यमत्पराः
मत्पराः
अनन्येनैव योगेन
अनन्येनैव
योगेन
मां ध्यायन्त उपासते.
मां
ध्यायन्त
ध्यायन्त
उपासते.
So he has finished discussing Nirguna Upasaka, Nirguna Ishvara Upasaka. Krishna comes back to Saguna Ishvara Upasaka. Over the next 3 verses, we will discuss that. Verse 6, 7, and 8 are Saguna Upasaka. So Saguna Ishvara Upasakas are of 2 types. Vishwarupa Saguna Ishvara Upasaka, Ekarupa Saguna Ishvara Upasaka. Those who worship the Lord as Virat, as Vishwarup, as the whole universe is one type. and those who worship the Lord as a single form, Krishna or Devi, Shiva, Vishnu, they are of another type. So there are two people. And here now we are talking about Vishwarupa Saguna Brahma Upasaka. So the top rank was Nirguna Brahma Upasaka. He was the best person. He was the highest among all the upasakas. If that is not possible for a person, then he should do Vishwarupa Saguna Ishvara Upasana. So he says, Ye tu matparaha, for those people for whom I am the matparaha, the final goal. What should they do? Sarvani karmani mai sanyasya. Surrender all karma to me. So that is karma yoga. Surrender all actions to me. And mam dhyayantaha, and meditate upon me. How should you meditate? Ananyenaiva yogena upasate. Worship me with the attitude, with the commitment that there is no other. There is no other to worship. So, sarvani karmani mai sanyas. Dedicate all actions to me. So, you can take this as doing Panchamaha Yajna, all these things. Every action is dedicated to Vishwarupa Ishvara. So, again, remember that karmani is important here. And therefore, he is saying that the moment you come to Sarguna Ishvara Upasana, there is karma also necessary. Right? Because every karma is processed by Ishvara's hand only. Every law of karma can be taken as being given by the hands of Ishvara. So what should you do? Mai sanyasya. Renouncing all the actions which you take. Right? How do you renounce? It's a particular attitude which we talked about in chapter 3 and earlier. Ishvara arpana buddhihi. Whatever I give, whatever I do for Ishvara. And Ishvara prasada buddhihi. Whatever I receive, I take it as a prasadam, as a grace of Ishvara. So that is my sanyasya. All the actions you should renounce to me, Vishwarupa Ishvara. And matparaha. Matparaha means keeping me as the final goal of your life. Right? So, knowing that after this, I have to go to Nirguna Ishvara only. Right? And remember that in terms of chapter 7, all these are what? Jignasu, this particular verse is not talking about Jnani. It's talking about the Jignasu Bhaktaha of chapter 7. And therefore, Ananyena Eva Yogena. Right? So, Shankara explains what is Ananya. Anya means other. Ananya means without any other. So, here Shankara says that Ananya has to be taken as apart from Vishwarupa Ishvara, there is no other deity for meditation. So, Shankara uses the word alambanam, object of upasana. The locus of upasana, there is none other than Vishwarupa Devam, than Vishwarupa Ishvaraha. Yogena means concentration, or with samadhi actually. So, in spite of all the distractions which you have, your family, your job, everything you can have, but ananyeva yogena mama pasate. You have to remember the final destination, which is what? Vishwarupa Ishvara, you must keep in your mind always. And that is why you have that very beautiful prayer. Kayena vacha manasendriyarva buddhyatmanava prakriti swabhavat karomi yatyat sakalam parasmai narayana yeti samarpayami. So with whatever I do, kayena, with my body, vacha, with my words, manasaha, with my mind, indriyerva, or with my sense organs, buddhyatmanava, or with my intellect, prakrite swabhavat, with my very own nature. Whatever actions are taken because of these, karomi yatyat sakalam parasmai, all of them I devote to you, I offer to you. He Narayana samarpayami, I devote to you. So every action which you take has to be devoted to or offered to Ishvara. That is called Ishvara Arpan. It's a continuous meditation. All the time you have Ishvara in your life. That is what he's talking about. He's talking about a karma yogi who is meditating upon Vishwarupa Ishvara. Okay, then verse number 7. Teshamaham samudharta
तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता
mrityu samsara sagarat
मृत्युसंसारसागरात्
avami nachirat partha
भवामि
न चिरात् पार्थ
ayyaveshita chetasam.
मय्यावेशितचेतसाम्
So tesham, for those people, which people? Mai aveshita chetasam. Mai aveshita chetasam, whose minds are committed to me. Which means what? They look upon me as the end in itself. So this again is a continuation of the last verse. He is talking about Vishwarupa Upasakas. So Tesham means those Vishwarupa Upasakas. What happens to them? Nacharat, before very long, without any delay, Aham Samudharta Bhavami. I become the liberator. From what? Mrityu Samsara Sagara. From the ocean of samsara, which is ocean of death. From death and samsara, I become the liberator. So, a very nice point is brought about that in Sakama Bhakti, that is devotion with desires, Ishvara is the means, while what you desire for, the materialistic things, they are the end. However, in Nishkama Bhakti, where there is devotion but with desires, these two things merge. Therefore, Ishvara is the means, Ishvara is also the end. And this we saw earlier, Jignasu Bhaktaha, Ananya Bhaktaha, all these names we have seen. The person who is got no other desires excepting Ishvara himself. Tesham aham samudharta. I will function as their savior from the ocean of samsara. And he says mrityu here because the biggest problem of samsara is what? The fear of death. So any great fear can also be called mortal fear. Thus, saving from samsara is my job. Doesn't mean that you will become immortal. No. It's simply in the form of giving knowledge. And that, when I say I will save you, you have my grace. He is saying that Ishwar Anugraha will be there. What is that Anugraha? Does it mean that you will suddenly get knowledge? No. The Anugraha is purely in the form of creating the right conditions for your knowledge. So you will get a teacher, all those things will happen. And for how long will this take, this whole process? Nachirat, before long. Krishna is not giving a time frame. And therefore, we should note here there are two ways in which Lord's grace will work here. First is by sending or creating the opportunity for you to come to a guru or guru to come to you. In other words, by creating an opportunity for Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. This is one form of the grace. Okay, that is for Jnanam. A person who has got Chitta Shuddhi. What about a person who doesn't have the necessary Chitta Shuddhi for Jnanam? What about that person? In what way will Ishvara's grace show? What is the answer? You should know. What possible way will it show?
You will show the ways to achieve Chitta Shuddhi.
Okay. But he's saying Mrityu samsara, samsara. I will save you from Mrityu samsara. So you have to take your mind back to 8th chapter. So there are two forms of mukti, Jivan mukti, which is because of jnanam right now, which is because of Guru, Acharya, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. That is one form of Bhagavan's grace. The other form of grace, if you are not yet ready, but you are doing karma and upasana, is to take you along Shukla Marga to Brahma Loka and Karma Mukti. So his grace will show in both these ways. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? All right. Now we go to verse number 8. मय्येव मन आधस्त्व
मय्येव मन आधत्स्व
मयि बुद्धिं निवेशय
निवेशय
निवसिष्यसि मय्येव
निवसिष्यसि मय्येव
अथ ऊर्ध्वं न संशयः
अत ऊर्ध्वं न संशयः
So मयि एव मन आधस्त्व. Adhastva means fix. What should you fix? Mana adhatsva. Fix the mind. Mai eva, on me alone. So that's about the mind. Then buddhim, the intellect also. Mai niveshya. You can add eva also over here. Fix the intellect also on me alone. Atha urdhvam. Now thereafter, nivasishyasi mai eva. You will be able to meditate upon me, to fix your intellect upon me. Na samshayaha. There should be no doubt of this. Now again, what is this Mai? So it could be anything. So here Shankara says, Mai is equal to Vishwarupa Ishvaraha. And Manaha is what? Sankalpa repeats the definition. Sankalpa Vikalpa Atmaka. That is Manaha. The definition came from where? From Tattva Bodha. Mind which is in the form of Sankalpa Vikalpaha. The rotating mind, that is called Manaha. You have to fix it up on Vishwarupa Ishvaraha. Adatsva means fix. So, here is an important point actually. He says, Shankara says that Mana is Sankalpa Vikalpa Atmakaha. And therefore, when Krishna is saying fix this mind which has the tendency to do Sankalpa and Vikalpaha, which remember that this kind of movement of the mind also talks about, it also is involved in emotions, right? I like him, I dislike him. And therefore, this can be taken as Shankara saying that there are two aspects. One is the intellect and one is the emotional mind. So this emotional mind also you fix upon me. Means develop an emotional bond with your deity. So this is one meaning of Adatsva. Fixing your mind which is capable of emotion onto me. Therefore, develop an emotional bond with the Ishvara whom you are worshipping. And then Buddhim Niveshya, fix your intellect also upon me. What does it mean when you say that you should have emotional bonding with Ishvara?
Is that Ekru Ishvara?
Why not Vishwarupa? We are talking on Vishwarupa right now. Why does he use both? Why does he use the mind, which is emotional bonding? Why does he use intellect also? Remember that some people only have emotional bonding with Ishvara. Right? They run to Ishvara when there is trouble. So that's emotional bonding. But supposing that trouble is so great that it doesn't go away. There is a possibility that great suffering can disturb your faith. The bonding can be disturbed. And therefore, here it is being pointed out that this emotional bonding is necessary. But that emotional bonding can be superficial if it is not backed up by buddhim niveshya, by a clear understanding of Ishvara. If it is not backed up, then faith, your faith in Ishvara can suffer when there is great tragedy. But if you have understood Ishvara, what Ishvara actually is, then even in the face of the worst tragedy in the world, the emotional bond will not break. Faith is unshakable even in the face of the worst tragedy. So if your faith, if your devotion, if your bhakti has the substratum, has the foundation of shastric study, it is not blind faith. It is faith born out of understanding because of Shastram. Such a faith can never be shaken. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why Shastric study is important even for Ekarupa Ishvara faith. Okay. So supposing you have this faith, Atha Urdhvam. Urdhvam here means afterwards. What happens? Nivasishyasi mayeva. So you are never away from the Lord. There is no question of separation. So just a grammar note here that if you look in the dictionary for nivasishyasi, you will not find that word. Okay. So it's called Arsha Prayogaha. Prayoga, the usage in the poetic usage in the Shastram. The correct word is Nivatsyasi. And Shankara supplies this because he knows that there are people like me who will go and look up the dictionary and not find it. So Shankara says the correct word is Nivatsyasi, which means Nischena Mai Nivasam Karishyasi, definitely resides in me. So he will never be away from the Lord. Okay. Now, what is the problem in saying that such a person will never be away from the Lord? Or saying that he is residing in me?
There is still Dvaita.
There is still Dvaitam. There is a resident and there is a residence. Right? So Shankara again comes to our rescue and says, Madat Manaha. He resides in me, but Madat Manaha, as my own self. Okay. So the question is, how does this Vishwarupa Upasaka get Jivan Mukti? Because nowhere here are we talking about Jnanam. So Shankara clarifies here, Atha Urdhvam means what? After the fall of the body. So when somebody says after the fall of the body you will get Jivan Mukti, remember it is indicating Shuklagati, going to Brahmaloka, getting taught by Lord Brahmaji, and therefore getting Mukti, which is called Krama Mukti, Mukti in sequence. Therefore, he is saying this Vishwarupa Upasaka will also get Mukti. He will get Krama Mukti. And when that Krama Mukti comes, then it will be called Jivan Mukti, na samshayaha. Do not have any doubts about this particular teaching. So Krishna is saying, do not have any doubts that he will get Krama Mukti also. Of course, there is always the other possibility that this Vishwarupa Upasaka, he gets sufficient Chitta Shuddhi, he comes to Jnanam in this birth itself, and then he gets Jivan Mukti. So this is not mentioned here, but this is a possibility, alternative possibility, which we have to add over here. That if during this Vishwarupa Ishvara Bhakti phase, your Chitta Shuddhi is sufficient, then of course you come to Jnanam and you get Jivan Mukti itself. The Krama Mukti option is only for those who have not been able to come to Jnana. For whatever reason, maybe you are so attached to Vishwarupa Ishvara, that you don't want to come away from there. Okay, any questions?
Acharya ji, that will also depend on each one's prarabdha. Whether they
Yes, you
move
can say
on
that also.
to-
Prarabdha is a very predominant feature in everything. And Prarabdha indicates the Lord's grace, of course.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, now the point is that to come to Vishwarupa Ishvara, what is the main vision that I must have? Everything has to be Ishvara. Whatever I see has to be Ishvara. Whether it be the tiger or the scorpion or the elephant, everything has to be Ishvara alone. Which means there should be no raga dvesha at all. And that is not very easy. So what happens if, supposing that I don't have the capacity to do Nirguna Ishvara meditation, which means supposing I don't have the capacity to do self-inquiry, that is one. Atma inquiry, I don't have a capacity, was the first one. And I don't have the capacity to see everybody as Ishvara, which means I don't have the capacity to be a Vishwarupa Ishvara. Then what is the problem? Then is there hope for me or not? So Krishna says, yes, don't worry. We go to chapter verse number 9, which will chant. Atha chittam samadhatum
अथ
चित्तं समाधातुं
न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम्
न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम्
अभ्यासयोगेन ततः
अभ्यासयोगेन ततः
मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय
मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय
So, atha, now, samadhatum chittam na shaknosi. Supposing you are not able to fix the mind, where mai sthiram, firmly upon me. And tataha, even then, ichhaptum mam, you want to attain me. What should you do? Abhyasa yogena, by means of practice. So the third alternative is being talked about. Supposing you are unable to fix the mind sthiram, steadily, consistently upon me, as talked about in the last verse. Then what should you do? Tataha. So tataha here, Shankara says paschat, afterwards. What is afterwards? After you discover that you do not have the absence of ragadvesha necessary to appreciate everybody as Ishvara. Which means after you discover that you are unable to do Vishwarupa Upasana. Tataha here has to be understood as that. Therefore, after you discover that you cannot do Vishwarupa Upasana, Ichha aptum mam. You should still seek to attain me. How? Abhyasa yogena. So, here, Abhyasa means practice of meditation on Eka Rupa Ishvara. So you see what is the ladder. Top of the ladder is Nirguna Ishvara Dhyana, Atma inquiry. Below that is Vishwarupa meditation. So first is Jnanam, then is Vishwarupa meditation, Dhyanam. So first is Jnanam, then Dhyanam comes. Dhyanam is Vishwarupa meditation is the second one. Supposing you are not able to do Vishwarupa meditation, then what should you do? Eka Rupa Dhyana. That is the third rung. And here Shankara very beautifully describes what is Abhyasa. This is one definition of Abhyasa you should always remember. So I will use the Sanskrit itself and I will explain to you. Shankara says Abhyasa is equal to Chittasya Sarvataha Samahritya. So collect the mind, Chitta, Sarvataha, from everywhere. Samahritya means collecting. So collecting your mind from wherever it has wandered out to. All the mind wanders everywhere, right? So he's saying, collect your mind from everywhere, all the places. And what should you do? Ekasmin alambane sthapanam. Alambanam is the locus. Ekasmin means one. So bring that mind which you have collected from all over the place, ekasmin alambane, to one locus. And this locus can be anything. It can be a Shiva Lingam, it can be a Saligramam, it can be a Krishna statue, it can be a Devi photo, anything which you are using for worship as a locus for invoking the Lord. Collect the mind from everywhere and bring it to this one locus. And that is not enough. Punaha, punaha. Again and again, you should bring it to that locus. Therefore, implying what? That you can collect the mind and bring it to the locus. But the mind being what it is, it will go out. So, punaha, again you do the same thing. Again you bring the mind back. Again it will go out. Punaha. Whenever, as long as it keeps going out, you should keep on bringing it back. Right? And therefore comes the definition of yogaha, which we saw in Tattva. What is the definition there? That yogaha was referred to as samadhanam.
Chitta ekagrata.
Chitta
Chitta
ekagrata.
ekagrata. So that is what he's talking about here. Keep on bringing the mind again and again and again till there is chitta ekagrataha, which we saw as samadhanam in Tattva. Okay. So here comes a very important point. What is the difference between abhyasaha and yoga? Because he says abhyasa yogena, right? He says abhyasa yogena. There is a difference between abhyasa and yoga. In abhyasa, the mind keeps on going and coming, going and coming, going and coming. And that is why Shankara says punaha punaha. Keep on bringing it back. So abhyasa yoga means you must do abhyasa until yoga is achieved. And yoga here means, Shankara writes, samadhana lakshanam, in the form of samadhanam. That samadhanam, which was referred to in Tattva as ekchitta ekagrata. So you have to keep on bringing the mind back to the locus. Whenever it goes out, keep on bringing it back until such time as it stays focused. So in abhyasa, there is distraction always. In yoga, there is no more distraction. That mind will remain fixed on the Ishta Devata. So in Abhyasa Yoga, remember that you start with Abhyasa, but you end with Yoga. And when you have started with this Abhyasa of bringing the mind back again and again, and finally are able to fix it for a length of time on the Ekarupa Ishvara, Abhyasa Yoga is complete. But remember that this is not an end in itself. From here, you have to progress upwards. So Krishna is showing this as a point where most of us are there, right? Most of us start with this and end up with Ekarupa Ishvara. But by talking about the other two stages, Krishna has said this is only the starting point. From here, you have to go to Vishwarupa Ishvara. From Vishwarupa Ishvara, you have to go to Nirguna Brahman also. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Very beautifully, 3 steps of the ladder have been defined.
Acharya,
Yeah.
we were discussing that there were 2 ways of Ishwara Anugraha. One was creating the conditions for Shravana Manana Manidhyasanam.
Yeah. One is for Jivan Mukti,
Yeah.
one is for Krama Mukti.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Both ways. Okay, it's a very important, very nice chapter. And you will find that a lot of misconceptions about what bhakti is go away when you study this chapter. So with this, I'll stop for today. Om Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Acharya ji.
patience.
Thank you,
Om.
Acharya ji.
Thank you.